Hello, my name is Kiana Hunter, and I am submitting this persuasive speech for the online public speaking course at Wayland Baptist. Did you know that one woman dies every 7 minutes around the world due to an unsafe illegal abortion? The abortion statistics on womencenter.com reports that close to 20 million of the 50% of unplanned pregnancies a year are illegal, mostly because of poverty and restricted access to family planning facilities. It also shows that approximately 25% of the world population live in countries with highly restrictive abortion laws, mainly in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So when we were tasked with finding an issue that's in need of a policy change, my mind automatically went to the social issue of abortion. There are a few situations that happen in life that have the capability to just crush your inner soul. And I believe one of those things is having another person dictate to you what you do with your own body. And this is especially true in the eyes of a woman. So hopefully you will be able to understand the need for change through my explanation of what abortion law is, as well as what reproductive rights are, and through talking about the stigma attached to abortion. As we all know, abortion has been a debatable topic in many societies throughout history on aspects of religion, morals, ethics, and politics. But the case that made it possible for women to terminate their pregnancies was Roe versus Wade in 1972, when an unmarried woman was denied an abortion in Texas. The Supreme Court, though, ruled that her constitutional right to privacy was in fact violated. And it also held that a fetus is not a person protected by the Constitution. So since then, abortion has come under scrutiny by lawmakers for even stronger regulations that limit the rights of women to have abortions. The list of some of these specific boundaries I found was on family.findlaw.com and had to do with things such as having to do mandatory counseling, learning about the connections of abortion to breast cancer, or the ability of the fetus to feel pain. Some states I know require a 24-hour waiting period or several visits to the clinic first. But even more controlling than that is being forced to have an ultrasound and listen to the fetus before the procedure. Some other stipulations also include the prevention of using state funds, except in circumstances where rape or incest is involved. And then, of course, you have the restriction of insurance coverage unless the woman's life is in danger. And a majority of facilities and individual healthcare providers actually have the ability to refuse the abortion altogether. So, on one hand, I can understand the reasoning for the enforcement of some of these guidelines, but looking at the bigger picture, this just completely goes against the human and legal right of a woman to make a decision to have an abortion. And that brings me to my second point of defining and understanding exactly what reproductive rights are. To start, the World Health Organization, or WHO, is a specialized agency of the United Nations that was established in 1948. This organization mainly focuses their concerns on international public health issues, and they describe reproductive rights as the right of all to make decisions concerning reproduction as it pertains to them, free of discrimination, of intimidation, and violence. The WHO supports and recommends that safe and legal abortions be made available to all women, which includes education about the subject in order to make those free and informed choices, as well as having good quality health care. The Center for Reproductive Rights at reproductiverights.org is another nonprofit legal advocacy organization that believes that every woman should be free to decide whether and when to have children. So, in actuality, the emphasis of the issue of abortion should not be placed on the right to abort, but on the right to privacy and reproductive control. According to Wikipedia.com, reproductive rights started to appear separately from human rights in 1968 and was affirmed the following year by the United Nations General Assembly with the Declaration of Social Progress and Development. This declaration states that parents have the exclusive right to determine freely and responsibly the number and spacing of their children. At times, this involves making the decision to terminate a pregnancy, which brings me to my final point. The women's liberation movement of the 60s and 70s raised their views about what they rightfully deserved and made abortion the central focus for that time. And it just so happens that it still remains a huge focus for our country now. Living in a society that expects women to bear some of, if not a lot of, the financial and a majority of the emotional responsibilities of the home, sometimes for some women, the option of abortion is just necessary. Unfortunately, that reality comes attached with something called abortion stigma. This is the societal belief that abortion is morally wrong and those who have them are considered bad or deemed shameful somehow. But for this, we turn to groups similar to the Sea Change program, which is actually dedicated to changing the mindset and overall culture of abortion. In an article on rhrealitycheck.org, the managing director of the Sea Change program, named Steph Harold, said that stigmas silence people, and they directly impact countless laws, institutions, media, communities, and personal interactions. In the same article, Jennifer Dalvin, who is the director of the American Civil Liberties Union, and who's also associated with the Reproductive Freedom Project, believes that on some level, policy change is culture change, and you just can't have one without the other. She says the catch-22 is that abortion restrictions lead to shame and silence, which in turn makes it easier for politicians, who are mostly male, to pass more restrictions on women. If you go to prochoice.org, you'll find it to be another really good site filled with valuable information on how women can make the best private decisions when it comes to having an abortion. I just think it's in the best interest of everyone to be well informed about all aspects of this issue, especially if we're going to, try to push for changes to state policies. So to recap, I discussed a little on what abortion law is, as well as what reproductive rights are, and touched on the stigma that's attached to abortion. At the end of the day, any decision a woman makes about her body, I think, should ultimately be left up to her and her physician and whatever higher power she serves, if any. That's just something to think about. So that concludes my speech. Thanks for listening.